Over the weekend, Lee Keltner was shot and killed in Denver. This is just another instance of the peaceful protests being violent and ending in death. But the media has been largely silent about this. Not completely silent, for sure, but it does not achieve the same level of coverage that someone like Kyle Rittenhouse did. Now, before I talk about that and the media response here, first, let's look at the facts of the case and actually what happened. Over the weekend in Denver, there were two different protests going on at essentially the same time. Lee Keltner, the man who was shot and killed, was part of the Patriot rally, which was set for 2 p.m. In response to this, BLM and Antifa organized a counter-protest soup drive. Which I didn't think that soup drives were protests, but I guess they can be, I don't know. The reason for this, as they state, was to, quote, drown out the Patriot rally. Now, one of the organizers of this soup drive counter-protest were the Denver communists. And they said, "We feel it is our responsibility to vocally oppose fascists every time they try to assemble." So the Denver communists believe that they have a right to free speech to try and drown out people who are assembling, but whoever they view as fascists don't have a right to free speech. Now, it's ironic that they associate themselves with Antifa, who are fascists, even though they call themselves anti-fascists. It's also ironic that communists tend to be some of the most fascistic government regimes, but I guess that's irrelevant when you're trying to drown out a Patriot rally or something. At some point, a small altercation ensued, and we can see here that on the left, that is Lee Keltner. And on the right is Mathew Dollof, the man who would actually shoot him, which is what we see in this next image. Lee Keltner sprayed Mathew Dollof with mace because he felt that he was being intruded or threatened or whatever the case may be. You can see that's what's happening here. As a response, Mathew Dollof pulls out his gun and shoots him in the head. So almost immediately after this image was taken, Lee Keltner was shot and killed. And Mathew Dollof is now being held on first-degree murder. He was not, however, part of the actual protest. Instead, he was hired as private security by 9 News. The issue with that, however, is that he actually shouldn't have been hired as security because he did not have a proper license. So that is an issue, and 9 News, who hired him, could face legal repercussions for hiring someone who wasn't actually private security. So now we get away from the facts and more into my opinion. If you don't care about that, feel free to watch a different video, but make sure it's also one of mine, because I'd appreciate that. So first, I don't think being mace then justifies you shooting someone. I mean, if that's all that there was, being maced is not pleasant, for sure, but that doesn't mean you then get to kill someone, which is why he's facing first-degree murder. But what I want to focus more on is the fact that the media is not really talking about this nearly as much as they did, for example, Kyle Rittenhouse. Now, I'm sure we all remember what happened there. He's essentially become a household name, but that's not because he was the victim, it's because the media were portraying him as a murderer. Not just that, but as a white supremacist. Joe Biden did that very thing. In an ad, they showed a picture of him talking about white supremacy. And because of that, Kyle Rittenhouse is now suing Joe Biden for libel. So keep in mind that in Kyle Rittenhouse's case, it seems fairly evident he was defending himself because other people had guns. He was being hit with a skateboard. It wasn't just mace, it was a skateboard to the head. He was being chased by groups of individuals on multiple instances, so it's a completely different situation here. But what I think the main difference is that Kyle Rittenhouse, as far as the media is concerned, was the aggressor. He was the one who actually shot, and he got other people killed. In this case, Lee Keltner was the one who was shot. And so it's not as important to portray him because he was a right-winger who was shot, as opposed to being a right-winger who shot somebody else. The same is true with someone like David Dorn, who once again was shot by someone, and so he's not nearly as well known as someone like Kyle Rittenhouse. And I think this just goes to show the bias by the media and the left. If it pushes their narrative, they're going to push it forward. Kyle Rittenhouse, white supremacy? Sure, that's totally a thing that happened. But Lee Keltner, who was shot for macing somebody, well, that's not really that important. He was a right-winger. We don't have to talk about the fact that he was the victim. Anyway, those are just my thoughts. Let me know what you think. As always, thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.